Hello everyone, I'm Marshall Edens and this is my project titled How Much Riparian Forest Does a School District Need? GIS Products for Students and Their Community. So the main objective for my project was to focus on local streams and the riparian zones around them. I wanted a problem that was specific to my community, the community around the high school where I teach. And a central focus of my project is to get students to interact with remote sensing data and hopefully to learn something about the state of our local environment, and then potentially in the future to communicate their findings to their community and perhaps even create an actionable plan, perhaps to contribute to some remediation if we find that the streams are hurting in the form of riparian buffer zones. So the central question was inspired by some work that my school district, or specifically colleagues in my department, that have done with the Stroud Water Research Center, which is located in the county to the east of us, but they're quite well known in the area of riparian buffer zone research. And one of their papers cites that small streams require at least 30 meters of riparian buffer to protect physical, chemical, and biological integrity. So I used 30 meters as kind of the benchmark here, the gold standard of what we might try to get in our area. And so the central question prompting my project is, what is the percentage of tree coverage on streamside buffer zones at three buffering thresholds at 5 meters, 15 meters, and 30 meters for 3 of the local streams in our school district. The data that I'm using in the project, there are 3 forms of data. There's multispectral NAEP data. This is 4-band imagery, so red, green, blue, and near infrared. It has 0.6 meter spatial resolution. It was collected in October 2019 by the USDA. And most importantly, this was taken with leaf-on conditions, which is important for finding the forested area. It's 8-bit depth radiometric resolution, so it has values from 0 to 255. Its coordinate system is in NAD83 in meters, and I sourced that from Earth Explorer. I also plan to use LiDAR data, so I found some classified point cloud LAS files. In the metadata, it suggests that it's appropriate for producing 2.5-foot cell rasters, which is what I intend to do with them. It was also collected in 2019. The precise date of the files that I have found I'm not sure of yet, but I'm certain that it will be good data based on the date range that coincides so precisely with my NAEP data. I think that will help in the e-cognition phase of my project. And importantly, this is also, the LiDAR data was taken with leaf-on conditions as well. It's also using an NAD83 horizontal coordinate system. Its vertical datum is NABD88. However, the units discrepancy here is something that I'm concerned about. Have not yet seen how that will impact the project, but it's in US feet. And that data was sourced from PASTA, Pennsylvania LiDAR Navigator. Also sourced from PASTA is some hydrology data. These are vector data produced by We Conserve PA out of Harrisburg. It's also in NAD83 US feet coordinate system, and this data, when you download it, is all of Pennsylvania streams as shape files, as lines, and this will be quite useful in my process. But one added bonus to this is that these streams are housing some data on the stream order, which I've imported into the project. So some maps that I've produced so far, this clearly isn't a map produced in any of our softwares, but I wanted to explain my site selection. So there are 3 streams that I've chosen. They're numbered on the left, 1, 2, 3. Number 1 is called Stauffer Run. It's in the center of the image. Number 2 is called Mill Creek. It's in the southern part. and then the final one is the Conestoga River in the north, stream 3. And the spans that I've selected seem somewhat arbitrary, so I'll add an overlay of Conestoga Valley School District. And with this, you can now see that the spans of the river, each of the rivers extends mostly from boundary to boundary line. Stauffer Run, stream number 1, actually has its headwaters right there in the center of our district, right near our high school. Something else that has come out of this project and is, I think, very useful from a problem-solving perspective and from an education perspective is that each of these streams differ from one another in their stream order. So Stauffer Run, stream number 1, is mostly a stream order 1. There's the small section near the district boundary line where it turns to a stream order 2, but that area specifically is a golf course where a lot of our students do some data gathering for freshwater biology and ecology. So I've decided to include that stretch of Stauffer Run. Mill Creek in the southern part is a stream order number 3, and then the Conestoga River is a stream order 4. Okay, something else that is important in the site selection here is the proximity of each of these streams to schools in our district. So Stauffer Run is very, very close to our high school. Mill Creek is close to one of our elementary schools called Smoketown Elementary, and the Conestoga River is very, very close to Brownstown Elementary. There are 2 other elementary schools in our district, and I could easily add streams near to their locations if this ends up being a fruitful project. Here's another map that I've produced. This is a mosaic of nape imagery of the 7 nape tiles that I have loaded in that completely include the 3 stream areas. The blue polygons are just rough estimates of the boundaries of each of those individual streams. I was hoping to use those to maybe clip some of the imagery, but how I plan to go about that is sort of a trial and error process at this point. This map here shows the Lancaster County boundary in red and the streams as vector files throughout the entire county. And then of course the yellow are my specific streams. I was originally going to crop or to use the yellow boundaries there as clipping extent for the hydrology data, but then I thought better of it and would rather preserve the context of the 3 streams that I've chosen within the context of the greater part of the county, relationships to one another and to our major river on the west bank of Lancaster County, which is the Susquehanna. So I'm still in the pre-processing stage of my workflow, but I'll describe the entire process here. So I'm going to use ArcGIS Pro to create refined project boundaries, which is some of what I've just showed you. I'm going to use the same program to create the buffer polygons for 5, 15, and 30 meters around the target streams. I plan to use the hydrology data to create those buffers from. So I'll be able to create a 5-meter buffer from each of those streams from the hydrology data. I'm going to use ArcGIS Pro to produce my elevation rasters, and I'm going to do that from the LiDAR point cloud data. As you saw on the previous slide, I'm using ArcGIS Pro also to create the image mosaics for the nape imagery, and then I hope to clip all of the pre-processed work to then be imported into eCognition. How exactly I clip that data and what exactly I clip it to, I'm still working through, but I imagine it's going to speed up the process in eCognition if I can get those data sets reduced quite a bit. Next step in the workflow would be image extraction. I plan to do all this in eCognition, and I have taken the process tree, the rules straight out of our lab from a week or two ago. We use nape data in that, and so I thought it would be appropriate. But the parameters I know that I'll play around with. So I'll segment it using quad tree, MRS region grow, and spectral difference algorithms. Then I'll classify the image into first a vegetation class using the vegetative index greater than 0, and then from that create a trees class or a forested class using the NDSM with a height greater than 2 meters, and that's approximate, but we'll see what yields good results. And then of course I'll export the raster containing both the forested and then forested classes, and then anything else that is unclassified as non-forested. And then the output, I hope to transfer the rasters from eCognition back into ArcGIS Pro. I will clip those rasters to the buffer polygons, the 5, 14, 15, and 30 meter buffer polygons, and then use attribute tables to calculate total area and percent area within those polygons. And we'll hopefully produce some summary tables and map layouts to show all the results. And then, so the final project, this is something that I've created just as a proxy for the results, just to see what they would look like. So at the very bottom of the slide here, I've taken a raster image produced in one of our labs earlier in the year and just sort of doctored it to make it look like a stream with a buffer. So the blue line at the bottom is the stream, and the red lines there represent, let's say, like a 5 meter buffer. And then from that data, I'll generate tables like the one shown at the left, where 5, 15, and 30 meters, I'll have some area within the polygon that is forested, and then the percents. And the percents, I suspect, will not taper off linearly. I suspect they'll be somewhat greater than linear. But all of these things, I hope, can be put into the hands of students, and maybe someday I'd like to bring them into this process of the GIS manipulation itself. So they could just be doing visual approximation using some of the products of this project, but ultimately it would be neat if they could have branching projects from this. For example, we have a teacher who has drones that teaches an aviation course, and it would be really neat to do some accuracy assessment or some change detection in the recent past. So since 2019, when all this data was taken, has there anything changed in the short term? So that's the project, and sorry I rambled on in parts, but I hope you find it interesting. I'd like to end with some of my concerns, and if you would give me some advice, you sages in GIS, I would love that. I'm concerned about the coordinate systems. I showed you that there's NAD83 through and through, but I'm not really sure about projected coordinate systems. So for example, the NAPE data, thinking that right? Yeah, the NAPE data is a conical projection, and I'm not sure if that's going to mesh poorly with the other data sets. It doesn't seem to be so far, but if any of you see that as a problem, please help me out. Or if I do end up having issues, then I'd appreciate some advice. And then I have another concern about the NAPE data and whatever the NDSM that I produce from the LiDAR point clouds. I'm concerned about them registering, and so if they don't overlap perfectly, I'm wondering if I should resample one of them so that they overlap. And my thoughts are currently that I should resample the NAPE imagery to fit on top of the NDSM, because it seems to make more sense to me to force the higher resolution, spatial resolution raster to lose a little resolution than to do it the other way around. But anyway, those are my concerns at the moment, and so I'd appreciate any advice.